ICD 11 has been published, and in comparison to ICD 10, there are a lot of changes that have happened. The major changes are that ICD 11 is much more comprehensive, and the coding system of ICD 11 is now in sync with the DSM 5. But more importantly, I wanted to talk about obsessive compulsive disorder in ICD 11. There were four main aspects that have changed. The first is the category itself has gone through a lot of changes. The second is the specifiers to diagnose OCD has changed. The third was the duration to diagnose it, and the fourth was the differential diagnosis. So let's take a closer look about what are the changes in the OCD criteria as per ICD 11. At the very outset, you will find that in terms of ICD 10, they have mentioned obsessive compulsive disorder in the neurotic, stress related and somatoform disorder criteria. It starts from F40 to F48. While on the other hand, in ICD 11, they have mentioned obsessive compulsive disorder and related disorder category. So that is a major change that is reflected in both the versions. In terms of the core and essential features, ICD 10 has used a slightly more complex language. It has mentioned stereotyped form in terms of obsessions. They should be individual's own thoughts, and they should be unpleasant, repetitive. All those things have been mentioned. While in ICD 11 they have simplified the language even further. They should be repetitive, persistent thoughts should be there, and they can be associated with anxiety. Going to the next part, in terms of compulsions, it can be repetitive acts. Again, stereotype behaviors can be there, and they should not be enjoyable, and they should be actively resisted. That is what has been mentioned in ICD 10. In terms of ICD 11, repetitive behaviors are there, but they have specifically used the word mental acts, which was not very much highlighted in the ICD 10th version. And they should be rigid rules, and they are not connected in a realistic way to the feared event. That was a major change. In terms of the overall duration, ICD 10 specifically talks about that it should be at least for 2 weeks, 2 successive weeks, while in ICD 11 it takes more than an hour every day. But they have not mentioned the overall duration, not at least in the essential features. But they have mentioned that they should be time consuming. So in terms of the experience of the person, you can see that the autonomic features have to be there as per ICD 10, and there is a close relationship between OCD features and depressive features, and sometimes it is very difficult and tricky to isolate them for an independent diagnosis. But in terms of ICD 11, they have used the language which is more consistent with the DSM 5, which is significant distress or impairment in personal, family, social, education and occupational functioning should be there. They have used a lot of examples as well, so to further clarify about what that distress can be. There is a major change in terms of differential diagnosis. In ICD 10, precedence should be given to schizophrenia, Tourette syndrome, organic mental disorder, depressive disorder, and panic attack can be a comorbidity. But if any of these disorders are there and they are in the diagnosable limit, then they should be considered as primary disorders as per the ICD 10th version. In terms of ICD 11, precedence should be given to another medical condition or substance use or withdrawal effects of the substance use. But more interestingly, it is not what has been mentioned but what has not been mentioned. In the ICD 11th version, they have not mentioned depressive disorder, Tourette syndrome or schizophrenia in terms of a differential diagnosis. Another major change that has taken place in comparison to ICD 11, earlier in ICD 10, we had F42 predominantly obsessive thoughts, F42.1 predominantly compulsive acts, or both of them are present, then F42.2 mixed obsessional thoughts and acts. While in ICD 11, they have replaced it with the level of insight. Obsessive compulsive disorder with fair or good insight is there, otherwise poor to absent, and the last category is unspecified. So these are the references that have been used for the entire presentation. That includes ICD 10, ICD 11 and one particular article by Simpsons which was published in 2014. It talks more about what are the proposed changes that can be done in the ICD 11th version. Thank you very much for listening to the video, and I hope it was helpful.